everyone, so welcome to another math lesson. Today we will be working on chapter 3, lesson 3. Okay, so in your table of contents, go ahead and write in the new lesson. Okay, and then if you turn the page, this is what your page should be looking like. Okay, so you have chapter 3, lesson 3, multiply decimals by whole numbers. So you will have it on here, I have it on here. Make sure that your notes look exactly like mine. And again, we have our focus notes, so questions on this side and notes on this side. All right, so the first question I already have here. First, let's talk about what multiplication really is, and we're going to have an example for it. So multiplication is really repeated addition, and I'll put that here. Repeated addition. Okay, so to think of an example, let's say we had a job and our job was to be a professional food competitor. Okay, so think of those people that race to see who can eat the most hot dogs or the most hamburgers in a certain amount of time. Okay, so that's our job. And in our job, we make $8.75 an hour. Okay, so we're just writing this down so far so we know a little bit of the background information for our example. So let's make a table. Okay, so in our table, we're going to have 3 different columns. All right, so the first column is going to be number of hours. Okay, the second column is going to say repeated addition. And that's going to be our biggest column. And then in our third column, we're going to have multiplication. All right, so in our job, again, we're making $8.75 an hour, so that means for each hour, we are getting paid $8.75 an hour. So number of hours, let's say we work for 2 hours, okay? We work for 2 hours, that means each hour we're getting $8.75. So we would add those, $8.75 plus $8.75, and in the multiplication column, we would multiply those. So 2 times $8.75, because we work 2 hours, and again, each hour we get paid $8.75. So let's say you work 3 hours. Okay, that means you would add $8.75 3 times. If you're multiplying, you would multiply $8.75 by 3. How about 4? And then it would be 4 times $8.75. Okay, so to put it into perspective for you, each time you multiply, okay, so if I'm multiplying 4 times $8.75, I'm really just adding $8.75 4 times. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4. If you want to check your understanding, you can try, how about 5 times? You would be adding $8.75 5 times. So you should have written here $8.75 5 times. You're really multiplying $8.75 by 5. Okay? So Now that we understand what multiplication is, it will help us when we're trying to multiply decimals by whole numbers, which is our learning target. So, in the questions column, we're going to write our next question, which is, or our main idea, which is multiply decimals. Okay, so we're going to start multiplying decimals. The first multiplication I want us to do is going to be 348 times 4. Some of you may be thinking, well, there's no decimal there, but 348 is the same as 348.00. Okay, so there is a decimal there, and I can put that decimal. Okay, so I have the 0.00. So I'm multiplying by a whole number. So I'm going to multiply that quickly. So 4 times 8, this is just regular multiplication now. So 4 times 8 is 32. Put the 2 here, the 3 up there. And I'm actually going to carry my numbers with a different color. Put that in red, okay? And then 4 times 4 is 16, plus 3 is 19. Okay, so I dropped the 9, carried the 1. 4 times 3 is 12, plus the 1 is 13. Okay, so one important thing to note, we are going to put the decimal in the same spot that it's in. So in this case, the decimal is right here, so I'm going to drop it down. So it's right here. It's in the same spot, okay? And then I can add the zeros. You don't have to. 1,392 is the same as 1,392.00. Okay, let's do another one. Let's say that this wasn't 348, but it's actually 34.8. So I have my decimal right here. And I'm still multiplying it by 4. Okay, let's see what happens to the number when we change it and the decimal is in a different spot. So 4 times 8 is 32. We're going to do the same things. Okay, now I'm going to put my decimal in the same spot. So my decimal is up here, so that means I'm going to drop it down here. And if I draw a dotted line, that decimal is on the same dotted line. Same thing with over here. One thing the book mentions is for you to put the decimal, for you to put the decimal in the same spot, but to know that since there's only one number to the right of the decimal, you're going to make sure, again, in your answer, there's only one number to the right of the decimal, okay? But I like to just say that the decimal should be in the same spot, so if you drew a line there, then in your answer, the decimal should be in the same spot. It's just a little easier for us to remember. So let's try one more. How about 3.48? Okay, so instead of 34.8, we move the decimal. Now the decimal is over here. So if I draw a dotted line, I should make sure that this decimal is in the same spot. So in my answer, I know that my decimal will be right there. 4 times 8 is 32. 4 times 4 is 16, plus 3 is 19. 4 times 3 is 12, plus 1 is 13. Okay, so I made sure that my decimal was in the same spot. And see how my answer changes? So it does matter where you put your decimal. Okay, if you don't put your decimal in the right spot, you might end up with a different answer. So here I multiplied 348 times 4. We got a pretty big number, 1,392. Here I moved the decimal, so now we're multiplying 34.8 times 4, and we get 139.2. Decimal's in the same spot. I move the decimal again, and my answer is now 13.92. okay? So it matters where you place a decimal, and in this case, when you're multiplying decimals by whole numbers, you need to make sure that the decimal is in the same spot. And another thing to note, when you're multiplying decimals by whole numbers, you're not doing anything differently than when you're just multiplying. Like if I took away this decimal here, you're just multiplying, right? 348 times 4. It's the same thing that you're doing, you're just adding a decimal, okay? So don't get confused when you're multiplying decimals by whole numbers. So I have one more type of example. All right, so you might see the book talk about an annex. What annex means is just that you're going to add zeros if needed. And we're going to show a couple examples of what this is. So we're going to be doing number 4 and number 5 on page 195 in your math book. So number 4 and number 5 on page 195, these are the examples. We're going to do them here as well. So first example, we're going to multiply 0.018. Okay? So we're going to multiply that by 2. Okay. When I'm multiplying, I'm going to make sure I keep everything in the same spot. I keep the decimal in the same spot. So when I multiply 2 times 8 and I get 16, I'm not putting the 16 somewhere over here. I need to drop it down right here, okay? Because the placing of the numbers matter. So 2 times 8, you get 16. Drop down the 6, add the 1. 2 times 1 is 2, plus 1 is 3. Okay? Do you think you're done? You're not. You need to keep multiplying out. And I'll explain that to you in a second. So 2 times 0 is just 0. Drop down your decimal. 2 times 0 is 0. Okay? The book is going to reference that you need to annex this problem. So that means if you stopped here and you didn't have these decimals, or you didn't have these zeros here, okay? So pretend you didn't have these zeros. You did 2 times 8, 2 times 1, plus the 3, you get 36. Then you add those decimals so they fill in the other place values. But you only fill in and add the zeros because you're multiplying 2 times 0. When you multiply 2 times 0, you just get 0. And that's why you get zeros here. And if I drew a dotted line, okay, everything lines up. Everything is in its own column. So you want to make sure you're doing that, okay? One last example. 0.012. And we're going to multiply that by 4. Okay, so 4 times 2 is 8. 4 times 1 is 4. Drop down your 0. Okay, so the book would say, now that you've multiplied what numbers there are here, you would add zeros to fill in those spots. Because if we didn't add zeros, then we would just have a missing spot. So you don't want your answer. If you don't fill in those zeros, you might come up with an answer like this. And this is not our answer, so I'm going to cross it out. Okay? So this is our answer, 0.048. It's important to have those zeros. The only reason you have those zeros is because you multiply 4 times 0 to get 0, 4 times 0 to get another 0. Okay? And if you use repeated addition to check your work, so just 0.018 plus 0.018. Okay, that would give us 0.036. So repeated addition is the same as multiplication. And then another way, remember in lesson 2, we used estimation to see what our products would be. So if I wanted to estimate one of these problems, let's say this one over here, for example. Okay, let's estimate this. So I'm going to round the 3. So if I wanted to use estimation to see what 3.48 times 4 would be, I'm rounding the 3. So I'm looking to the right of the 3 at this number. You can't see that. So this number right here determines if I should move this number up or down, if I should round it, okay? So since this is 4 or less, I'm going to round it down. So 3.48 is rounded to 3 times 4. My answer would be 12, about 12. I'm going to put those squiggly equal signs, okay? So 3 times 4 is about 12. So does that look about right? Okay. 3.48 times 4 is 13.98, and I estimated about 12. So you can use estimation to check your work when you're solving problems. All right, have a great day.